Good morning, Illini. Welcome back. I'm your host, Matt Schrock, here for Healthy Illini Podcast. We are glad you've joined us. If you're new to the program, welcome. We're glad you're here. If you've been with us for a while, thank you. We appreciate that as well. We're excited to have this conversation today as the semester is closing here at the University of Illinois, and it's been a great year. It's been wild to think how fast the year went. I was just talking with both our guests today about that, but we're glad you're taking this time out here as finals are coming to spend some time with us. Today I have two student guests with us. The first is John Gray Hernandez. He's a grad student getting his master's in clinical social work, but he also works as a residential program liaison with the Beckwith Residential Support Services, and we'll talk a little bit about what that is later. But John, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I'm also joined by Hannah Gallivan. She's a freshman here at the University of Illinois and is studying media and cinema studies. Hannah, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So whenever possible on the program, we strive to discuss student experiences and feature student voices and let them share it as that pertains to health and well-being on our campus. And today the conversation I wanted to have was kind of an idea of in the vein of pulling back the curtain. Of talking about something that other students may not notice or not be aware of, and give a little bit of snapshot into that, because we do have a very diverse student body from all kinds of backgrounds. And one group that we were blessed to have have here on our community is the students with disabilities. So what I want to do is just talk to you both, because you both have differing perspectives on this. You have experience with it from different angles, and talk a little bit about the day-to-day perspective and experience for members in that community, students with disabilities. So let's just start off with, what does a typical day for you look like? What are the aspects of your day that might be a challenge or something that other students might not be aware of or deal with, or things that you've seen in your time here on campus?
Yeah, so one of the big things that I think about for me is I use PAs. So those are personal assistants, and they come in every morning and every night, and they help with activities of daily living. So for me, it's like if I need to take a shower, or if I need help getting my shoes and socks on, or things like that, anything that has to do with like my morning or night routine, they come and they help me. So I think that's something that differs from my experience and maybe other students' experiences. And then also I just think a lot about just general day-to-day accessibility. Like, I think when I came here, it took me a minute to like familiarize myself with the campus and the layout, and it's a lot more accessible across the board than anything that I've experienced in my hometown, but I'm always thinking about the little things, like what happens if an elevator breaks down, or what happens if today this door button isn't working, or things like that. So those are things that I tend to think about a lot when I'm going to class or going to the library. Most spaces, like I said, are really accessible, and that's what really caught my attention when I came here. But yeah, those are some things off the top of my head that I tend to think about.
Hannah, for clarification for listeners, I do want to just give them the information that you are currently in a wheelchair.
Yes.
So when you're talking about door access and you're talking about buttons and elevators, things like that, that's a very important aspect of the accessibility for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It informs a lot of the way that I move around campus and just spaces in general. So those are a lot of things that I think about a lot. I use a wheelchair pretty predominantly on campus because it's pretty big, but then I also use a walker when I go to like the Dres gym or things like that. But yeah, I use my wheelchair pretty much all the time on campus.
So well, before going, if you're hearing noise in the background, it is pouring rain as we're recording. So if you hear that, and it's not your speakers or anything there, it's just it's raining really hard outside. So I apologize for that. But John, you have a little bit, you have a different side of that perspective, because you do work as a resident liaison. So as someone who helps, as someone who is a support for students with disability, what is a typical, what's a snapshot of your day?
So yeah, it's a really great point. I do have a different perspective than Hannah, but not too much of a different perspective. Like Matt said, I am a residential employee at Beckwith, which means I live on the same floor as Hannah and all our other floor mates. And A typical day in life is not much different than any other student. I wake up in the morning, get ready for class, and I go about my day as usual, just living on the dorm floor as any of the other residents. My specific role at Beckwith is to focus on the micro level things. So unlike a PA, where a PA helps residents with the obvious things like daily living, shifts to, get their basic needs done and dealt with, I focus on more on getting to know the residents in a way that allows us to understand what they're needing, what maybe we're not seeing from a Beckwith side, from a Beckwith resources side, just so we know how to tailor resources and tailor the program to better fit their needs. And that can be anything from just mental health needs, from academic needs, personal needs, maybe just developmental things, just how they're feeling, just making sure that the people that live at Beckwith, which is, for context, for people listening, Beckwith is a dorm floor in Nugent Hall, just to figure out how the people who are living there, how we can better serve them to make sure they're getting what they can get out of the college experience. So a lot of my work looks like, on a day-to-day basis, just having conversations with residents, honestly just being their friend. That's basically what my job is. And then my supervisors will come and talk to me every week and ask me, what have you talked about? What have you noticed? Is there anything that we're not seeing, that we're maybe missing, that maybe we need to tailor our program to maybe help certain people in certain ways that we're not sure about? And then I give as much information as I can.
Yeah, it's a really cool relationship, I think, because John is not like a member of the pro staff. Like, he's not a member of the people who oversee all the broad things, and he is very like involved with us. Like he said, he talks to us a lot, so it's less of like I'm talking to like a person who's in charge, and more like I'm talking to like a friend who's also like an advocate, which for me makes it a little less like anxiety inducing, in the sense where like I can talk to John and some of the other disability liaisons about just anything that's really on my mind, but knowing that it comes from like a student perspective is really nice. John and I and another friend on our floor, like, we often go for coffee during the weekends and just chat and catch up about anything, really. And so it's a cool relationship to have that's very like student to student, rather than like, oh, you have to go talk to this person who's way older than you and like is in charge.
Best job ever.
And you touch on something that when we talk accessibility, often it's a conversation about accessibility to like a building or a space, a physical space, or a routine. But there's also accessibility can also mean community. It can also mean finding your people and finding people that you're comfortable with. And so that's a part of it too. Having a liaison is there. And so, Hannah, how has the accessibility that you found here, both in like physical buildings and things like that, but also community, how has that helped you as a student? Not as a student with disabilities, but as a student, just regular college student in your classes. How has that helped you with that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, because it was something I thought a lot about when applying to schools last year. I was very much like, something that was physically accessible was very high on my list of criteria. Like, some people want a big school, some people want a small school, some people want a school that's good for their major. It can be any number of things, but for me, if it didn't have the accessibility that I needed, I was like, not gonna work for me, because I very much, like you said, just wanted the experience of being a regular college student. I have done a lot of like self-advocacy in my life in different areas, and that has been really fulfilling and allowed me to understand how to articulate my needs and advocate for myself. But I kind of said to myself, well, this is a point in my life where I get to decide where I want to be and where I want to live, and I would love to be somewhere where those mundane little things, like emailing the same person over and over if an elevator breaks down, for example, I didn't want that to be like the driving force behind my college experience. And I think to your point, like the accessibility that I have experienced here, and just the level of awareness that like the campus community has about what people like me might need has made it a lot easier for me to just focus on my assignments and my classes and all of the other college student things rather than always thinking about, oh my gosh, like, what if this happens or what if this happens. There's a lot less stress involved in my day-to-day life because there's people that are ready and willing to advocate for me, and I don't have to do it all myself. So it helped a lot with my ability to be a student and not just like a person with a disability first. So that's been really nice.
So I do want to ask though, and kind of pivot just a little bit. You mentioned earlier, you mentioned that, if an elevator breaks down, you want to email the same person, or your day you think about, what if a door button doesn't work? What happens if a door button doesn't work? Like how do you process? Like what do you what's the next step for you? Because like for me, if I see an elevator is not working, I might be slightly annoyed. It doesn't throw my day off completely. Whereas for you, it could. So from your perspective, what do you do? How do you deal with that? And so and also on the other side from John, as somebody who now sees this and you're now more aware than you were before, what do you see when something breaks down? What as an advocate, what kind of things do you do? So it's kind of a question for both of you. Hannah, how do you deal with it? And John, how do you be a better support when you see these things? What have you learned and experienced over the last year, months, whatever?
Yeah, I think a lot about the philosophy of I learned at a very young age how to speak up for myself, and it was thanks to my parents. And when I got dropped off for kindergarten, they were very much like, okay, you're going to need to ask the teacher for help, and you're going to need to articulate what exactly you need help with, because we're not going to be here for like the whole day to be that advocate for you. So it kind of gave me an experience very early on of like, this is how I articulate what I need. So I'm very reliant on like other people being around in the vicinity, which is great sometimes, and it's also like very frustrating because sometimes I just have to like wait for somebody to come along and then be like, hey, can you open this door for me? Or, hey, will you let somebody know about an elevator? An elevator is definitely a harder fix than just having somebody open a door, because if an elevator is not working and I need to go to a class and it happens to be on the 3rd floor, like, there's no other way to get to the class, which definitely is frustrating. But most professors are really understanding if it's like a disability related issue that pops up. It definitely has taught me how to like give myself a moment to breathe and be like, this is something that happens and it's not the end of the world, but I always have to kind of give myself a moment and be like, okay, this happened, can't really control it because it happened anyway, and like, what immediately can I do about it? And then like after the immediate thing, then like, okay, what can I do going forward, or who can I talk to make sure that like this gets fixed or addressed or won't happen again. So I kind of have 2 stages of like processing. I do like the immediate thing, and then I do like, okay, who should I talk to? And thankfully there's a lot of people here that are resources for me, like my access specialist through DRES, who helps with those kinds of things, and then also people like John or Beck with Pro Staff are also really helpful, just in terms of being just even like a sounding board of being like, hey, this thing happened and it really sucked. Because sometimes that's all you need from somebody, is them not to like solve your problem immediately, but sometimes I just need to be like, this thing happened and I wish it didn't, and it's really frustrating. And so sometimes what I'll do is just like go up to people who I know and who I trust, and I'm like, can I vent for a little bit, and know that they'll listen. So obviously John and the Beck with Pro staff are really good at helping us solve problems, but they're also really good at just like listening, which is really helpful, because sometimes I just need to be frustrated for a while, and so it's really helpful to have those people to talk to.
Yeah, and kind of like building off of that. I mean, one thing that I've learned, I mean, more broadly, if the question is, what have I learned about, the things to do when something's not working, if that's the general question. I've kind of learned, kind of getting to interact with the other residents at Beckwith, kind of how much of a privilege it is to not speak up for yourself. For example, I have a sink in my room, and there's two nozzle heads, there's two sink heads, and one of them just hasn't been working. And you know what? I'm not gonna politely report about that. I don't. It's not something worth my time, right? I'll just use the other sink head, right? But like Hannah was describing, it's kind of a privilege to kind of have that point of view where something's not working, you'll just, inconvenience yourself, you'll find another way to do it. But for people like residents at Beckwith, sometimes when an elevator isn't working, that's the difference between they can go to class or not, right? They don't have the luxury of just choosing to, take the long way or inconvenience themselves, because there really is no way to inconvenience yourself in that sense. So I've kind of felt like a sort of empowerment in learning how to advocate for myself and being able to be that kind of voice for some residents at Beckwith. Hopefully I've been that voice in some ways. And just learning that sometimes, it's worth to kind of, speak up about the issues that you're seeing, right? And that's kind of what I learned by working at Beckwith and just doing very small, tiny things, like maybe if something isn't going the right way that a resident feels, maybe getting that information to where it should go instead of just doing what I would do normally and just kind of feeling like, oh, well, life sucks sometimes and moving on, right? And that's something that, being part of the Beckwith community has taught me, to speak up for yourself, and it's a privilege to not.
So if somebody's listening to this and they are realizing that they may either not be aware of resources and they need them, they may be a student with disability, or another student who's realizing, like, I just haven't been aware of things, I just haven't been paying attention. What would be next steps for that? What are the resources here? How do they get in touch with those resources? How do they, whether it be they need the resources, they want to be a PA or a liaison, they want to help assist and be an ally in that way, what are the ways they can find out more information?
In a broad sense, if they are experiencing issues where they feel like it's some kind of accessibility thing, definitely just reach out to the general Drez email. If you have any kind of concern about accessibility in terms of the resources you're getting or not getting, or there's just some kind of inconvenience, and you feel like it's really just making your life more difficult, reaching out to the general Drez email and just letting them know what your issue is, they'll definitely direct you to the right email or the right person to talk to. That would be answering the first question. But if you want to get involved in the type of stuff that I'm doing, figuring out how to be an ally or an advocate or just getting involved in some way, Beckwith is hiring PAs for next year, for the 2025-26 academic year. You could reach out to Jason Murphy. I could pull up his email if you'd like, but just Jason Murphy, put it into the Illinois search bar, and his email will come up.
We'll put these links in the bio. So we'll have his email, we'll have the Drez and the Beckwith websites and things like that, so they can find that there.
Perfect. Yep. Reach out to Jason Murphy. He's hiring right now for PAs. Reach out to Paige Lewis, Paige spelled Paige, Lewis spelled Lewis, and inquire. Let them know that you want to be a part of the team. We can always use more people to help in some way, and really, if you want to be an advocate, all you really got to do is just have a relationship with people who are part of this community. It's not much more complicated than that. That's what I do. That's my job, and it's been the best job ever, as I said earlier.
Are there any RSOs that fall into this category of helping, assisting, or are awareness for students with disabilities, things like that?
There's a couple. The ones that are coming to mind are like there's a couple of service dog organizations on campus, which obviously can be really helpful for students who may need to utilize service dogs. For all the listeners, I actually have my service dog Gabby with me here today. I didn't get her from Illinois, but I got her from another awesome organization, and she has been super helpful. So that's a good way to get involved. I don't know exactly off the top of my head other like disability focused RSOs. But yeah, just to echo John's point, I would say, you don't even like need to know somebody in the disability community to be an advocate. I found that a lot of people just, even on campus, I'll interact with people and they'll notice me needing help, or I'll ask people and they help me, and then they're like, oh, like, is there anything else I could do? Or even people I sit next to in lectures, they'll notice that I ask for help on the first day, and then they'll like continually help me. So I think just like having that exposure, I guess, to somebody who needs things like that. A lot of people are advocates in more ways than they realize, and sometimes it just takes someone who notices something and is willing to speak up, and that can be super, super helpful in order to have like community and people who will speak up for you. There's so many things to advocate for right now, and I think people are coming more and more together about that, so that's been really encouraging. And just like the general campus culture, I feel like, is very good at understanding disability, even if it's on like a surface level. I'm usually kind of bracing myself for some sort of awkward conversation, because that happens a lot. Just being very physically disabled, people have questions about it, but coming here, and I think it's testament to how much of a disabled student population we have here, but coming here, I really haven't had those interactions with people. They're just pretty used to it, and maybe they'll ask a question if they're curious, but people are pretty used to it, and they'll often say like, oh, I see the wheelchair basketball team a lot, or I see other people in wheelchairs around. And so I think the amount of exposure that just any student gets here has been really cool, in terms of not having to be like the disability person that educates like all of these people. It's like there's more people that people are seeing besides just you, so that's also been really nice.
I do want to you actually touched on something I wanted to follow up with and ask, because you've mentioned that you are an independent person, you advocate for yourself, and you know, one of the college experience, just in general, not for student with disability, just general experience. Is it okay for someone to come up and ask if you need help? Is there a best way to do that? Because like for me, I want to be respectful, I want to be helpful, but I also don't want to, you know, overstep or anything like that. So is there a best way to approach that question?
Yeah, honestly, just asking is really like the best way to do it. Sounds a little silly, but a lot of people, not necessarily here, but just in life, I've had a lot of people who like just go and start doing something before asking, and that's like a little jarring, because I'm like, whoa, like I know that you saw something, but I didn't like ask you if I needed help. So I think just like asking a person before you try to jump in is the best way. Sometimes people ask me and I'll be like, no, I think I'm good, thanks, and they're super respectful of that. So yeah, honestly, just asking, and again, it sounds a little silly, but like treating disabled people as people, and not like these anomalies that you've never seen before. Like, I promise you, you're gonna see weirder things in the world than a person in a wheelchair. So just talking to me like a regular person, and if you want to help, then great. And like, just, I'm always up for a conversation, and so just like approaching someone the way you would anybody else is always the good way to go. Like, you don't need to act any differently than you would with a regular person.
I really appreciate you both coming in today. This has been a really fascinating, wonderful conversation. So I just want to say thank you for that. And it's been a real great look, snapshot of what a day looks like, and some really powerful information from both of you. So before we close, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming in and sharing the time with us today.
Thank you for having us. It's been lovely.
Yes, thank you so much for the invite. Thank you. This was amazing.
We are lucky to be part of a large campus here at the University of Illinois, and with that size comes a lot of diversity in students from different backgrounds, from different geographic origins, ethnicity, financial situations, whatever it may be. But one of those aspects of diversity is that we have a community that has students with disabilities, and I think Hannah put it really well, that there's a great community here that advocates for themselves, but also becomes something that is common here to have students with disabilities, and it seems to integrate within the campus thread really, really nicely. So if you're listening to this and you have questions about maybe you need resources, or you're desiring to know more about resources as a student with disability, reach out to the links in the bio, find out more. If you're a student who just wants to be an ally, who wants to know more about how to help, or just have more awareness, reach out as well. These are the conversations that we want to spark. These are the conversations that we want to have, so that everyone can have the college experience, no matter what their background is. So really encourage you to reach out on that. If you have any questions or comments, let us know here at Healthy Illini. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'd love to join with you as we continue to walk the journey on this campus. But thank you for joining us today. You are on a personal journey, no matter where you are in it. You are important and you matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter, and we're here to keep you well to excel. So go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini.